Most people can't focus for 10 minutes straight, can't finish a chapter, can't sit through a lecture without checking their phone 14 times. Meanwhile, a military sniper lies motionless in a field for 72 hours. No movement, no distractions. Waiting for a single moment, one shot. How does a human brain do that? And more importantly, why can't yours focus long enough to read a single page? It's not discipline. It's not willpower. It's not that snipers are built differently. They're not. They're regular people who got handed a system, a cognitive operating system that makes elite focus automatic. And nobody's ever taught you this system. Not your school, not your parents, nobody. I reverse engineered it. Interviews, military training manuals, declassified sniper school curricula, and the neuroscience labs that copied their methods. It comes down to 4 things. And by the end of this, your brain will never work the same way again. Chapter 1. The pre-shot routine. You sit down to study. You open your laptop, check notifications, scroll for 2 minutes. Finally open the document, reread the same paragraph 3 times. 17 minutes in, you've done nothing. You think that's a motivation problem. Wrong, that's a startup problem. Your brain has no ignition sequence. It's just idling. Burning fuel going nowhere. Snipers don't just lie down and start shooting. Before every single engagement, they run what's called a pre-shot routine. Same sequence. Every time, without fail. Check position. Control breathing. Scan environment. Clear mental noise. Lock on to target. This isn't superstition. This is neuroscience. Psychologist Roy Baumeister at Florida State University spent decades researching self-regulation. His finding: willpower is not a personality trait. It's a state, like being warmed up or cold. The pre-shot routine warms up the brain's prefrontal cortex before the task starts. That's your executive function, your focus engine. When you have a ritual that signals, "we are working now," your brain stops debating whether to start. It just executes. Here's what average people do. They try to focus while still deciding whether to focus. The mental debate drains the same cognitive resources you need for actual work. You're exhausted before you've done anything. Snipers don't debate. They execute the ritual. Focus comes automatically. Your version is simple. Same chair. Same desk clear of clutter. Close every tab except the one you need. 3 deep, slow breaths. Write 1 sentence. What am I doing for the next 45 minutes? That sentence is your target. Now you're locked in. Every time. Not sometimes. Every time. Ritual becomes automatic. Automatic means free. Free cognitive resources mean deep focus. But here's the problem, though. Even with a perfect startup routine, most people's focus collapses within 15 minutes. Why? Because they're breathing wrong. Chapter 2. Tactical breathing. You heard that right. Breathing wrong. Don't roll your eyes. A sniper takes a shot between heartbeats. Between breaths. Literally time to the gap between cardiac contractions. Why? Because a heartbeat causes microscopic movement. That microscopic movement at 1,000 meters equals a miss. They control their physiology to control their precision. This isn't metaphorical. This is mechanical. Here's the neuroscience most people don't know. Your breathing rate directly controls your nervous system state. Fast, shallow breaths activate your sympathetic nervous system. That's fight or flight. Adrenaline, cortisol, scattered attention. Perfect for running from predators. Terrible for learning. Slow, deep, controlled breaths activate your parasympathetic system. Rest and digest. Prefrontal cortex comes online. Working memory expands. Information processing accelerates. Dr. Richard Brown at Columbia University Medical Center published research on this in 2012. Slow breathing at 5 to 6 breaths per minute produces synchronized brain waves across cortical regions. Your brain literally synchronizes itself. Different lobes start working together instead of firing randomly. You become more intelligent in real time just by breathing differently. The average person takes 15 to 20 breaths per minute when stressed, which is always because modern life is constant low-grade stress. Your brain is running in a permanently degraded state, and you think that's normal because it's all you've ever known. Snipers use box breathing, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Repeat 4 times before starting a task. Navy SEALs use the same protocol before entering dangerous situations. Not to calm themselves, to optimize themselves. Try it right now. Actually try it. 4 seconds in. Hold. 4 seconds out. Hold. Again. That slight shift you feel, your prefrontal cortex just came online. That's what optimal feels like. Most people live their entire lives never feeling it. Now you have the ignition sequence. Now you're breathing right. But here's the thing most people miss completely. You can be perfectly calm and completely unfocused. Calm isn't concentration. And that's where Chapter 3 destroys every productivity hack you've ever tried. Chapter 3, the sniper's tunnel. Average person studying, laptop open, phone face up, music playing, window with movement visible, notifications on. Basically 12 things competing for attention simultaneously. They call this multitasking. Psychologists call it catastrophic cognitive fragmentation. Sniper in position. One target, one scope, one breath cycle, zero peripheral distractions. Camouflage, rendering them invisible to their own environment. Their entire sensory field is collapsed into a tunnel. This is not discipline. This is engineering. MIT neuroscientist Earl Miller published research in 2001 that has been confirmed hundreds of times since. The human brain cannot process two streams of information simultaneously. What feels like multitasking is actually rapid task switching. Every switch costs you, cognitive switching penalty. The residue of the last task bleeds into the next one. Your brain doesn't fully disengage from task A when you move to task B. It carries contamination. The average person context switches 566 times per day. That's from a University of California Irvine tracking study. 566 times. Every single switch leaves residue. By 2 p.m., your brain is drowning in its own cognitive waste. You wonder why you can't focus after lunch. It's not the food. It's accumulated switching damage. Snipers don't switch. They don't have the option, and that constraint is the superpower. Your engineering fix, single tab rule, one browser tab open. Not two, one, phone in another room, not face down. Another room, single piece of paper with the one task written on it visible at all times. No music with lyrics. Your auditory cortex will process the words whether you want it to or not. Brown noise or silence only. This feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is your brain screaming for cheap dopamine hits. That discomfort means it's working. Push through it. But here's where it gets interesting. Because eliminating distraction is the floor, not the ceiling. The actual sniper advantage isn't about what they remove. It's about what they deliberately install. Hit subscribe before the next chapter. Because what I'm about to show you is the part no productivity guru ever mentions. And it will make every focus technique you've ever tried finally actually work. Chapter 4, the threat signal. Here's something that will break your brain. Snipers perform better under genuine pressure than in training simulations. Their accuracy increases when the stakes are real. This seems backwards. Pressure should degrade performance. The science says otherwise. Psychologist Elizabeth Phelps at New York University ran studies on threat conditioning and memory encoding. Her finding, the amygdala, your brain's threat detection system, directly enhances hippocampal encoding when activated. Meaning genuine pressure doesn't just make you alert. It makes you smarter, faster, and dramatically more retentive. Your brain has a hierarchy of information priorities. High-stakes information gets encoded first, deepest, and most permanently. Low-stakes information gets queued, compressed, and deleted. This is why you remember your most embarrassing moments with crystal clarity, but can't recall what you studied last Tuesday. Schools treat all information as equally important. That's why you forget everything. Your brain doesn't agree. Your brain only guarantees permanent storage for things that felt like they mattered. Prisoners learn faster than college students because their stakes are survival. Surgeons remember more than students because a wrong move kills the patient. Snipers fire with perfect precision because one mistake ends 2 lives. You're studying for a quiz that represents 10% of a grade that affects a GPA that doesn't actually determine your future. Your brain has correctly identified this as low priority, so it stores it in RAM. Temporary, erasable, gone by next week. The fix is manufacturing stakes. Real psychological pressure, not pretend pressure. Real consequences. Robert Bjork at UCLA called this desirable difficulty. When retrieval is hard, encoding is deep. When encoding is deep, forgetting is nearly impossible. The struggle is not a sign you're doing it wrong. The struggle is the mechanism. Here's how snipers train without real targets. They simulate threat, heart rate monitors, competitive peer pressure, public performance, time pressure. They recreate the neurochemical state of real stakes using environmental engineering. Your version. Study with a countdown timer that ends in public consequences. Join a group where you have to present what you learned. Bet money on a study goal with someone who will actually collect. Record yourself teaching the material and post it. Create real public accountability. The moment your amygdala believes something matters, your hippocampus opens maximum bandwidth. Information stops bouncing off and starts sticking permanently. You don't need more motivation. You need your brain to believe the stakes are real, because when it does, it performs exactly like it's designed to perform. Here's the thing though. Even with perfect stakes, manufactured pressure, tactical breathing, and a pre-shot routine, most people still hit a wall. Focus degrades. Attention drifts. They push through, which makes it worse. Because pushing through degraded attention is the single most common learning mistake, and it destroys everything you've built. Snipers know when to stop. More precisely, they know exactly when to stop. Not randomly, not when they feel tired. At the precise moment before cognitive collapse, because there's a recovery window. And if you miss it, the next session is dead before it starts. University of Illinois researcher Alejandro Lleras published a study in 2011 showing that brief mental breaks dramatically improve sustained attention. Not long breaks, brief breaks. The brain doesn't need rest, it needs reset. There's a difference. The reset window is approximately 90 minutes. Ultradian rhythms. Your brain naturally cycles through peak focus and recovery modes roughly every 90 minutes. Most people ignore the recovery signal. They interpret mental fatigue as laziness. They push harder, drink more coffee. The cognitive equivalent of running an engine without oil. Snipers rotate positions, adjust equipment, hydrate, and recalibrate during waiting periods. Not because they're tired, because they're maintaining peak readiness. Preemptive recovery, not reactive recovery. Your 90-minute session structure, 45 minutes of single-focused deep work using everything above, 10-minute real break, no screens, physical movement, 35 more minutes of focused work, stop, full recovery, walk outside, hydrate, let your brain consolidate what it just processed. Sleep that night does the final compression. Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley has documented this extensively. The hippocampus transfers short-term encoded information to the neocortex during deep sleep phases. Without that transfer, today's learning is tomorrow's nothing. The sniper executes the mission. Debrief follows. Sleep is the debrief. Skip it and the mission data corrupts. To keep it simple, stupid. Pre-shot routine. Same ritual every time to fire up your prefrontal cortex. Tactical breathing. Box breath 4 times before starting to synchronize your brain. Sniper tunnel, 1 tab, 1 task. Phone in another room, 0 residue. Threat signal, manufacture real stakes to open maximum encoding bandwidth. 90-minute cycle, peak then reset before you crash. That's the system, not motivation, not willpower, not 5 tips to be more productive. A cognitive operating system engineered by people whose lives depended on it. Most people hear this and do nothing. They'll save this video. Watch it again someday. Take no action. Forget everything within a week. That's not their fault. That's just what happens when information enters a brain without a retention system. And that's the real problem, because everything I just taught you, you'll lose 70% of by tomorrow morning. Not because you're an idiot, because that's how human memory works by default. The forgetting curve doesn't care how important the information was. It deletes anyway. That's why I made this video breaking down exactly how to remember everything you learn permanently, using the same spaced repetition system that medical schools use to encode thousands of procedures into resident surgeons in 2 years. Because learning fast is useless if you forget fast. Watch it next.